Every pharma thinks they're doing something different, but they're all very copyists. They all work in the same stuff.
Yeah.
One of my roles when I was at MDL was to visit every one of these companies, and this was before cell phones and stuff, and we would talk about their projects, and we'd go to meeting rooms, and as a young chemist where I still had the mental acuity, I could see in the whiteboards, all the chemistries were the same. And of course, because all the synthetic organic chemists were trained in the same way, they're same chefs, and they had the same starting materials they could buy, so they're going to make the same molecules. The targets, they're not going to work on areas without hypothesis validation that they haven't read in the literature already. So it's like, they're all working on the same targets.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we can't show you what we have. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
And so sharing data, never going to happen, but because they think they're too overly competitive. But if pharma could ever learn from the software world, as soon as pharma started getting big with software starting to get big with open source, boom, that's where we are today. I plotted this out before with GitHub repositories. Easy exponential growth right around the time AI started to just get off the charts. Google published the Attention's All You Need paper. They just gave it out there. And we have our entire U.S. economy is making a bet on basically LLMs. Yeah. That's largely stemmed from that, right? And then, of course, all the content that exists on the internet and stuff. It's crazy, but you sometimes have to share information in order to get everyone to benefit. And I don't think pharma ever gets that.
No. The Amgen and J&J almost have 90% target overlap.
Oh, yeah. You know that because you were the both.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the open source data sharing will likely happen, but I don't think it will be United States, but I'm expecting it more likely to be China biotech get bigger. It's because just like the DeepSeek, when Alibaba went to open source, the biotech will probably face same revolution on the Chinese side.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's really interesting. We started a new database, a collaborative. Well, you got yourself, but he helped you get into. But you made a decision to either go industry or stay academia. And you could have stayed academia with those credentials, Illinois, Berkeley, Caltech. Why'd you decide to go into the next pharma?
Oh, so actually the major reason was that when I tried to apply for academia jobs, that's when all the jobs disappeared.
Oh, I see.
So, it became super competitive. So even with the first author science paper, after applying about 50 positions, I only got one interview.
That's great. Wait, so you were first author of science on a membrane protein structure, and the academics were turning you down. That's why academics need to be just totally reassembled. Reassembled.
If I remember correctly, when I was applying for the R01 job, that was about 2013, 14-ish.
Yeah.
So there was actually one of the most shocking thing I found out was that one of the position I applied was the UC Santa Cruz. And so the funny thing is that the UC Santa Cruz actually kind of posts all those seminars, the interview seminars.
Yeah.
And that position I applied, there was 100 candidates giving the seminars.
That's
crazy. Almost 3 seminar per week for 20 weeks straight. Okay,
that's crazy. That's Santa Cruz.
The problem for the biotech pharma right now is that Chinese are dominating. So because when I started Amgen, the outsourcing pitch was begin, and the China already lived. Then the pretty much took all the precursor space. Okay, so they are pretty much manufacturing every precursor, and their outsourcing was to actually go next level, which is actually now pretty much manufacturing pretty much the foundation, okay, the protein molecules, antibody therapeutics, and how to run the different campaigns to find the molecule sequence. Okay, so, and that's already over. So then after that, pretty much right now, pretty much they are actually working on a drug space. Okay,
yeah.
So the problem right now for the American or company that like J&J, Amgen, is that there's 10 times more people, and the people working on there almost equivalent or way smart, almost better or smarter, and more competitive than us. Okay, so young, smart, competitive, and pretty much work insane hours too. Okay, so and on top of that, there's 5 times of those people out there pretty much. So in other words, they're pretty much the productivity is like 5 to 10 times higher.
Yeah.
And they work in pretty much the space in an environment that actually have all the foundation set up. So right now, if China if our president decides to embargo everything from China, then all the pharma company will collapse because they won't gonna have any material to actually do any experiment on. Chinese literally have even though with the President Xi decides to just close the entire China can just go independent and actually do the entire biotech research from the foundation all the way to the end. Okay, so there's almost that much difference. Okay.
Yeah, so it's interesting. A couple points on this. So first of all, have you read the book Breakneck? Oh, you got to look at it because you will have a good appreciation for it, knowing that side of the equation. Breakneck's a recent book, audio book I recommend, and it contrasts how U.S. versus China addresses things. U.S. tends to be very litigious, very lawyer-centric. Most of our people in Congress are lawyers, right? China is very engineering, very manufacturing, very much more technical at the political level. And just that sort of key point, there's a huge amount of trickle down. Now, there's obviously societal differences and freedom differences and all that stuff. To most people in this country, in the U.S., if they heard what you said, they would be like panic, like, oh no, China's taking over. When I hear that, I'm just like, well, like, bitch, let's dial it up. I mean, and I've always been that way. I don't ever look at someone who's just like off the charts, ridiculously good at something and say, oh, well, woe is me, or, or like get racist or anything like that. No, I mean, just like, okay, let's find ways to work with together because clearly, we're going to learn stuff from them and they're going to learn stuff from us. And there really shouldn't be a us and them. You and I have both worked in a field where pretty much our groups we work with tend to be very heterogeneous in terms of different cultures. Rarely do you see like someone who was like first generation or multi-generation born just in the United States, like came off the Mayflower, that kind of thing. And like all the same group, everyone looks that way. Everyone looks different. Everyone thinks different. They've been trained in different capacities. Competition is really important with respect to education in one respects, but because it brings like distills out like some real sharp people. And as you know, you work with a ton of sharp people. But clearly, the China way on its own is not. It's going to succeed on its own. And the U.S. way won't succeed on its own. All empires fall. So we need to find a way for the countries to really learn from each other and work effectively together, and not us them one another. So that's just kind of one point. But bringing it to the our worlds, might be opportunity for you in this. Right, and that's that. As especially if you have good relationships overseas, whether they're in Korea or in China, there could be entrepreneurial opportunities.
Yes.
Because I imagine in China probably wants also to be able to leverage some of the U.S. entrepreneurial spirit, which I know exists still in China, but there are different constraints.
Yeah.
Right.
So the good thing about China right now is that they're mostly focused on the main stack. Okay, so the big money makers like the drugs and those kind of compounds. Okay,
right.
So fortunately, the space outside of it, China doesn't care much because obviously you always want to go for the big fish and the guaranteed success. Okay, so
and so what areas do you think the U.S. would be big on that China's not? There's some potential opportunity to work together.
So those be more like pretty much rare molecule, rare disease bases. Okay, so
just rare. Okay.
Yeah, because obviously what China doing pretty well these days is that pretty much copying the drug that actually the protein drug that work really well and actually make it better. Okay, so and they know that that's actually the easiest way to earn huge money. But anything novel outside of it, although they are actually now to encroach onto it, because obviously they are expanding. but at least the room is a lot smaller. On top of that, there's actually a good place for opportunity to kind of like to collaborate or like pretty much work together, because the thing is that they already built the foundation to actually do a lot of CRO work. Okay, so in other words, America just have for us we just actually kind of like bet those CROs and actually just apply a little bit of capital on it, and now we can actually really take off very quickly.
So when China does do a drug development project or discovery to basically make it available, when they do that in China,
Yeah.
how long does it take, and how much does it cost? By comparison, like in the U.S., it might take 10 to 12 years, and it might be $2-3 billion. Is it any faster and cheaper in China?
So the clinical side, I don't know much because I don't work on it, but at least on the early molecule design side, price-wise is actually very similar, but the
Okay.
speed is like way faster. Okay, so the one thing, like my last year in Encodia was actually working mostly with the Chinese CRO to actually
Nice.
generate the antibody molecules for the N-terminal recognition. Okay, so the price they call compared to the American CRO was comparable. So the ones that actually we worked on was pretty much the GenScript, which is technically the Chinese company now, because all the operation is technically in China.
Yeah.
So the price they call to the American CRO was about like somewhat only within maybe like 10-20% discount level, but the amount of the service and the flexibility they are willing to provide was like, it's ridiculous. Like if you ask American CROs, then I want to add this experiment, then there's always that you need to pay extra amount of this, and then you need to tell me like this in advance, and the contract is not signed out, then I'm not gonna work on it. With the like GenScript, like Chinese, the antibody pharmas, okay. So the problem is that our problem was complex. So the things actually didn't work out that well at the start. So we actually began to ask to do a experiment like ABC, and they say, okay, we can do it for free. Okay, and they do it within like 1 week. Okay, so
Wow.
So that was like the huge like difference. Okay, so
Well, okay, so that's producing substances or
producing like
biologics or something that it unregulated in the sense it's preclinical drug discovery,
Yes.
right? But you don't know much about how they do drug trialing.
So the clinical side wise, I know that the Chinese is not the cheapest, but usually if you actually work with some of the certain CROs, like Chinese CROs, then actually they actually kind of put it onto the other countries. That's actually more the lax in the regulations. Okay.
Yeah.
So that actually allow you to actually kind of make things a little bit more cheaper. But the clinical side, I know that if you work outside of the United States, then you can actually get somewhat almost down to 1/10 of the cost of it. So
Well, so first of all, this whole, I mean, I've cited statistics like this for decades because it's only just gotten bigger, like the number of years